Hello, and welcome to episode 23 of The Smallest Thing. I'm Lisa Manterfield. As an author, I'm especially pleased to see the uptick in reading habits during the pandemic. I know I've been making more time than ever to disappear into fictional worlds, both my own and those of other people. My guest this week is author Julie Mayerson Brown. We talked about the joys of escaping into a good book, why we love hopeful, if not entirely happy, endings, and the unexpected silver linings of sheltering at home. But first, desperate for news of Deb, Em makes a big decision in this week's episode of The Smallest Thing. Welcome to the serialized audiobook, The Smallest Thing, written by Lisa Manterfield, read for you by Charlie Sanderson.
Chapter 23. That night, I crawl into bed and pull the covers over my head, trying to block out this awful world and think about the small light of hope that has flickered on inside me. But I can't erase from my memory the anguished face of my friend or the helplessness I feel. It's only once I'm alone in the dark and quiet that an idea begins to form. In my vast repertoire of very bad ideas, even I know this one ranks among the worst. I push it aside and try to go to sleep, but the idea won't leave me alone. By the time I hear Dad come up to bed, I have never been more clear on what I need to do. When I'm sure Dad is asleep, I creep down the stairs to the kitchen. The weather report's been threatening a storm all day, and through the kitchen windows I can tell it looks darker than usual. I'm not sure if the darkness will help or hinder my plans to move through the village undetected. I grab a bucket and make a vinegar solution, dunking a clean cloth into the water and rubbing it over my face, neck and any other exposed skin. Then I dunk my hands into the water and scrub under my nails, rubbing my palms in determined circles and trying to keep my thudding heart quiet. When I'm done, I creep to the back door, where Dad has hung his suit. What I'm doing goes strictly against both protocol and common sense, and yet it feels strongly, urgently necessary. Deb said I should use my strengths, and all this time I've been sifting through my positive qualities, trying to find something valuable I could use. I've been looking in all the wrong places. If there's one thing I'm good at, it's sneaking out to places I'm not supposed to be. Now Deb has provided the impetus and Aidan has supplied the means. All that's left is for me to execute the plan and not get caught. I find the box where Dad keeps his suits and am dismayed to see there's only one left. I make a note to find Aidan in the morning to see if he can snag a couple more. I wouldn't put it past Dad to reuse suits if it was the only way he could do his visits. I slip off the community liaison badge, making a careful note of exactly how he's placed it, so I can put it back the same way when I return. He's bound to notice if it's not exactly right, but by then, I'll have already got what I want, and it will be worth whatever consequences I have to face, I hope. Then I'll slip into the suit Aidan brought for me, aware that I'm reusing it, but rationalising that I haven't been outside in it or in contact with anyone infectious. I clip on Dad's name tag, rehearsing in my mind that the J in J Siddle will stand for Gemma if anyone asks. I go through the procedure of covering my feet and head and taping my gloves to my sleeves. Not an easy task to do single-handed. I double-check my work, pressing down any seams to test for gaps. Then crack open the front door, pausing to check for any stirring from upstairs and step out into the night. The first drops of rain from the threatened storm have splashed the parched streets, landing in heavy splotches like the spots on a Dalmatian. The main road is deserted. There are no villagers around at this hour and very few workers. Even the television crews by the barricade have long since packed up and moved on to newer news. The small amount of action will be concentrated around Bubble City. As I approach, there is no sign of Aidan, and for once I'm glad. I don't want to run into the one person who might recognise me in this suit. I don't want to get him into any trouble, and I also don't want him to know that I've betrayed his trust. As I get close to Bubble City, I take a deep breath. The air already stale inside my mask, and press back my shoulders, striding toward the entrance as if I have every right to be there. If I look like I don't know what I'm doing, I'm bound to give myself away. I head for the entrance tent, where I've watched the other workers go in, nodding to a passing medic but not making eye contact. Inside, 2 medical personnel are checking one another's suits for gaps and tears before going inside. My online research verified what I'd already observed. Medics work in pairs. I walk up, ready with my alibi. "Hi guys," I say, trying to sound as if I'm just one of the team. "Sorry to bother you, but my partner hasn't turned up, and I need to get in to see a patient. Would you mind giving me a quick once-over?" I raise my arms and turn my back, partly to give them no option but to do as I ask, and partly so they can't see my face. I hear a grunt of agreement and one of the medics circles around me. She pauses to read Dad's community liaison badge but doesn't ask any questions. When she says, "All clear, Siddle," and gives me a thumbs up, I follow them through the decontamination basin. They continue onto the care ward and I slip through the makeshift gate into tent 2. The tent is dimly lit, but I can make out 3 neat rows of low, narrow beds, each with a chair on one side and a small table on the other. Beneath each sleeping occupant is the lumpy silhouette of stored belongings. The whole place has the feel of accommodation for a cut-rate camping holiday. Basic, but not as scary as I'd expected. Just inside the door is what I take to be a nurse's station of sorts. One suited medic lolls in a chair. From the rhythmic movement of his suit, I can tell he's dozing. I consider waking him and taking advantage of his disorientation, brazenly flashing my badge before carrying on. I opt instead for the safer option, sidle past and hope he doesn't stir. I walk the rows of beds, pausing at each with a concerned cock of my head. I recognise Millie Talbot curled in a ball, her thin hair splayed around her. In the dim light, I can see her lips moving. She's dreaming. A pang of sympathy stabs at my chest. I can only imagine the images that dance through her dreams at night. Her future is so uncertain. I rest my hand on her covered foot and give it a gentle squeeze. There, but for the grace of Lady Luck, go I. I move from bed to bed, sealing my heart in a protective case so that each stab of guilt and sadness can't reach it. I know everyone here, and any one of them could be me. But I can't think about that now. I have to find Deb. I hurry up one row of beds, but she's not there. Halfway down the next row, I find Mr. Elliot. That's good, I think. It means she's probably close by. I'm about to move on when Mr. Elliot turns over in his sleep. As I glance back, I see his eyes are open and staring up at mine. In the pale, yellow light, it's not clear if he recognises me. I hesitate, wondering if I should move on. It's enough time for him to register who I am. He pushes up onto one elbow and the sound of him rustling against the sheets rushes through the tent like a gale-force wind. I put my gloved finger to my face mask and urge him not to say anything. "What are you doing here?" he hisses. I duck down beside his bed, heart thudding in my chest like it's trying to escape its protective case and bolt for freedom. I can't allow Mr. Elliot to give me away now I've made it this far. I point to the badge on my chest and tease the lie to the tip of my tongue, the one that tells him I'm supposed to be here, that this is all above board and nothing for him to worry about. But that lie won't come. "I want to see Deb," I say. "Please don't say anything. I just need..." But I can't tell him any of the reasons I need to do this because that would make them real. I just want to see the friend I've known so long I can't remember not knowing her. I just want to give her a hug, as if everything is normal. I just want to let her know that someone cares. Please. Mr. Elliot considers me for a moment. He nods. "Where is she?" I whisper, looking down the row of beds for her familiar silhouette. But when I look back at Mr. Elliot, I get my answer. A dark haze falls across his face, and in his eyes I see a swirl of hope, longing, resignation and sadness. In the centre of it all is a look of deep fear that makes goose pimples spring up on my arms, despite the heat trapped inside my suit. He glances over my shoulder. Behind me is a gated exit with a fenced walkway beyond. It leads to the care ward.
Welcome back. My guest this week is author Julie Mayerson Brown. Julie is the author of the Clearwater series, books she says of her readers who love Gilmore Girls and a good Hallmark movie. Julie is a mother, reader and writer, and lover of dogs, red wine, and a good laugh. She joins me today to talk about pandemic reading and the art of escaping into a good book.
Hi, Julie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here with you.
Well, let's start out about talking about reading and writing in a time of COVID. I'm hearing from people that this is a time when, we're stuck at home and we're looking for books and ways to escape. And I'm just wondering about your reading habits. How have they changed? Have they changed during this time?
Yes, I'm actually reading more because I'm finding I do want to immerse myself in the fictional worlds where there is no COVID, there is no quarantine. So I'm enjoying a number of books lately that I would call women's fiction, defined as stories that revolve around a woman's journey. There can be romance, there might not be romance, but I really enjoy reading and writing the kind of book that a reader can just immerse themselves into. And I kind of look at it as like a little mini vacation for an hour to enter a world. My books have a small town environment that people enjoy very much. So that's what I'm doing for my reading habits during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. It's, talk a lot about finding ways to escape and sort of get a weekend and a vacation when things like that don't exist anymore. So yeah, reading's a great way for that, to do that. Let's talk a little bit about your books, because that was a good segue into that. So in your Clearwater series, I know you write a lot about sort of women reinventing themselves and discovering who they are. And I think that's something a lot of us have had time to think about during this time of maybe slowing down a little bit and like, okay, who am I really? So tell us a little bit about these characters that you write.
Let's see. So in my series, each book has a particular protagonist that has a complete story and a character arc that she has to climb up to the top and come down. And when you talk about the reinvention, my characters, they're either reinventing their lives or they're having to reimagine their lives, or my protagonist has to overcome something, a big challenge, not your everyday challenge. My current work in progress, my protagonist must really overcome her fear of being out of control. Her life was defined by an early loss in childhood, and therefore her go-to is to always maintain strict control. So each one of my protagonists have to overcome a belief that they have or that she has about herself and recognize where her strength truly comes from.
Yeah, it's amazing how timely that has become, because I think, a lot of us are doing exactly what you talk about, sort of having to acknowledge that there are so many things, big things that we cannot control. And so, how do you How do you let go of the stuff that you can't
And I'll add
control?
that the beauty of fiction is that we don't have to we're not confined as authors by ordinary life. We can give our characters some, truly difficult problems, which is why I love to read fiction and write fiction, because ordinary life for most people is a little dull. I mean, yes, we all have challenges and problems, and we have illness and we have loss. But fiction allows us to really experience these dramatic events, particularly when it comes to the women protagonists and character arcs. We can really blow their lives up, and watch them struggle. And what's fun about writing fiction is sometimes the characters reveal themselves to us that we're not even prepared for them, for how strong they can be or how amazing or clever. And that's a really fun day when I'm writing and my protagonist just surprises me with, oh my gosh, I didn't know she was going to do that or say that.
Yeah, in a couple of episodes ago, I've talked about characters who wandered onto the page and then taken over the story. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Which is always the challenge of writing a great secondary character. She wants to take over the book. And so this is kind of how my series started, because in Long Dance Home, the protagonist had this really funny, snarky little sidekick, and she kept coming in and wanting to take over the scenes. So she was screaming out for her own story. And therefore, in the second book, Road to Somewhere, she got her turn to be protagonist. So those secondary characters have a lot to offer.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah. So when readers read your Clearwater series, they will find the same world, the town of Clearwater, but they'll also find characters that cross over from book to book, right?
Yes, the characters. So the town of Clearwater, which is sort of like originally named it Clearwater Lake, because that is what my fictional town is named for, is located in California wine country. And the town is one of the characters in the book. It's always there. And there's the bakery that everybody loves, and the wine shop that everybody loves, and the park and the gazebo. These locations recur in every book, and the characters do cross over, and they might play a bigger role in one book and a smaller role in another book. But there's great familiarity. A lot of the reviews say, I want to go back to Clearwater, because I compare it to the town in Gilmore Girls, Stars Hollow, which is a fictional town. If you ever enjoyed Gilmore Girls or a Hallmark movie where you just want to go to that town because it's a lovely place to be, and the characters are quirky and interesting and fun. They're people you want to know.
Yeah, feels just a little bit like hanging out with old friends when you read a series like that.
Exactly.
Yes.
I want that.
Yeah.
That's what I want for my readers, because as a reader, that's what I enjoy. I love to pick up a book and go, oh, I'm back with these friends again. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why so many of us read as well, I mean, lots of reasons why we read, but just to get to know these characters and to dive into their world. And it's just a really great escape, especially right now. And I know that your books have not necessarily a completely neatly tied up happy ending, but I'd say a hopeful ending. Would you say that?
I would say hopeful is the perfect word. It's a happy for now ending, because I don't go in as far as the issues are resolved. And that's the key for me and the books that I write. There might be a continuation of the story somehow, but the immediate issues are resolved. The problems that my protagonists has had to confront are no longer problems. There usually are some things that I leave kind of not completely wrapped up. It might be because I know there's going to be a next in series. And so for the book that I'm finishing up right now, I have to decide how neatly I want to tie everything up. But yes, they always end on a hopeful note with redemption of some kind, clarity of purpose, and the reader can close the book knowing that the protagonist will be okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, you know that obviously this is podcast is an episodic podcast of my book, The Smallest Thing. So we're not at the end yet, so I can't give anything away. But leaving readers knowing that your characters are going to be okay is, I think, is a good thing.
And I think it's part of something. That's why people read different genres. That everybody wants something different from a book or a TV show or a movie at different times. And some people want, I mean, when you think about some of the very popular bestsellers, they end on a very dark note. If it's a dark story, they could end on a note where grim things are going lie ahead for the characters. And so, at different times we want different things. But the genre that I'm writing now, actually, one of the definitions of it is that the problems are resolved to the reader's satisfaction. And we have to be true to the kind of the rules of our genre.
Right. So can you tell us a little bit about the next book in the series?
Yes,
without giving too much away?
So the next book, it's funny because I've been writing, you know how this goes. I've been writing like what my premise would be and trying to fill in the blanks. But the protagonist in this book is Tessa. She is a main secondary character from Road to Somewhere. And Road to Somewhere ends as Tessa's life is falling apart. So Road to Somewhere does have an ending. There is something that's not neatly tied up. Anyway, we open the book and Tessa's recovering from an emotional break. And she is a hyper-controlling entrepreneur sommelier who owns the town's very fancy gourmet shop, Gourmet Cheese and Wine. And she is obsessed with controlling her life because of these emotional wounds she suffered as a child where she lost her mother. And of course, the control that she strives so hard to maintain is stripped away when her ex-husband makes an unexpected request. So everything that she's controlling in her neat little life explodes, and her character arc is how she's going to overcome this lack of control and turn it around for herself.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Did that wrap it up okay?
You wrapped it up just fine. Satisfactory.
I hadn't planned on that question, so I actually had to really wing it there.
Sorry to spring that on you.
That's okay.
It's good practice.
Surprise me some more.
Well, I'm not going to surprise you. I'm now going to ask you that my standard question: what have you been doing to escape during lockdown? What have you been finding and discovering?
Okay, well, I'd say there are a few things I've discovered. I think COVID and quarantine, we all have had to discover some things about ourselves, whether it's like, oh, maybe I can work from home, or oh, maybe I do enjoy gardening, or maybe I really hate gardening. But I would say I was doing a lot of baking for a while. I think many people have tried their hand at baking bread and whatnot. I actually I'm a very good baker. So I've discovered some cookie recipes that I really like. Also, I've been playing around with Rice Krispie treats like crazy. Thankfully, my 2 adult sons have moved home, so I have eager eaters because I can't eat them all. So baking off and on. I do have dogs, and I spend a lot of time with my dogs. And I love animals of all kinds. So I like to watch animal videos, especially funny ones, especially puppies, particularly boxer puppies. And third, I have discovered podcasts, which is very apropos to our conversation. Currently, I'm listening to the Elizabeth Holmes story, which is the Theranos true crime stuff. So I've worked myself into a routine where I get involved in these podcasts, but I'm only allowed to listen if I'm doing something else. So I either have to be walking or cleaning or doing something so that I am not just sitting and listening. So baking, dogs, podcasts, and I'll binge some mindless, brainless shows here and there.
Yes, I think we're all doing a little of that.
Guilty. I plead guilty.
So let me ask you, what is one thing that you have really missed from your normal life during the quarantine period? And what's an unexpected silver lining that you found?
Well, I have, like everybody, I miss seeing my friends. I do see some friends. We kind of expanded our pod recently and do a social distance cocktail party. And I haven't been able to see my brother in many, many months because of a certain reason. So I really miss seeing him. And the silver lining, though, for me, and I believe that there are many, I genuinely believe that, having my kids come home has been such an interesting experience. They are in their 20s. They've been out of the house for several years. We've had an empty nest for several years. They both had apartments and roommates. And the situation just turned out because they didn't want to be around their roommates and the people coming and going, and they were working from home, that they could be here. So having my boys move home, while challenging at times, has been a true silver lining. And we've been spending, I think, more quality time with a couple of neighbors. The proximity and the comfort that we have, that has been a wonderful silver lining. So it's about people and really getting to know some people even better than ever, and even getting to know my kids better than I did, and seeing them, I'll kind of not spy, but listen in, they're around the house. So I'll hear them on work calls or something. And I'm like, wow, that kid is really capable. So I've discovered things about them that I just didn't know or hadn't had a chance to observe before. And finally, each of them have darling girlfriends, and we've had the opportunity to get to know the girlfriends a little better and look forward to what might lie ahead for romance in my own house.
I love it. Your very own hopeful ending.
Loving the time of Corona.
Julie, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I really appreciate you talking to me today. I will put your website link in the show notes, but where can people find you if they want to know more about you and your books?
So Julie Mayerson Brown, and you'll put that in your show notes, is my website, julieMayersonBrown.com. I am on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all over social media, and readers can link to me through the website. And I have a newsletter that goes out every other week, approximately every other week, that they can subscribe to, which would be wonderful. I don't bother anybody very often, and I try and share useful information, at least interesting or entertaining information. And my books are on Amazon, available through Amazon, and in Kindle Unlimited.
Fantastic. Julie, thanks so much. It was really great talking to you today.
Great to see you, Lisa. Thanks for inviting me.
All right. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Smallest Thing. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. If you'd like to support the show, please leave a review and share this series with others you think might enjoy it. If you're on Instagram, tag me there at LisaManterfield_, or follow me on Facebook at author Lisa Manterfield and Twitter at LisaManterfield. My newsletter subscribers are always the first to know about my news, events, upcoming releases, giveaways, and more. Sign up for monthly delivery at lisamanterfield.com/subscribe and get your complimentary copy of Love, Loss and Letting Go, 3 of my short stories. Thanks to Justin Joseph for producing and editing this show, and to Ketsa.uk for the music. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening.